talk on something?
I'm going to speak during the meeting, not on the agenda. Just
Oh, okay. I forgot, we have not that far, you guys ready? Everybody ready? We'll start as soon as we get an attorney.
I didn't pass the bar, but I can talk a good game.
Okay, we will, at this time, reconvene the regular meeting of the Lawton City Council. I'll call the meeting to order. And we're up to reports by the mayor and city council. We're going to start with the mayor pro tem and go backwards.
I have a lot to say now because that's the longest I've ever sat up here without saying anything is during that meeting. The first thing I wanted to say was we had talked about the dedication of this auditorium to a past mayor. And I just wanted to say that I got in touch with his surviving daughter. And he does have one surviving daughter. She lives in Oklahoma City now, LaWayne Irwin. And she is Wayne Gilley's last surviving child. And she does plan on being here when we do have a dedication of some kind. The other thing was I wanted to be sure and make note of the fact that Santa was here and I did not get coal. But there's always time between now and the 25th.
Everybody's talked a lot, I guess, huh?
I just want to say that I didn't get coal, but I didn't get a peppermint either. So, are we just in limbo? Apparently, Dave's still mad at us.
I guess so, and Miss Hankins.
I've talked more than usual.
You have, and I'm going to make a comment. It's a little bit of a housekeeping comment. We continue to have problems. I get reports on Channel 2 access, and we need to deal with it because I believe it's in the franchise agreement that be done, and today I think we're having audio problems. So if we need an agenda item for that, Mr. City Attorney, please put the agenda item on. If it's something that we can take care of otherwise, please do so.
Could you explain?
We have problems today. We're having problems with sound on the Fidelity Channel 2.
Mr.
Audience
Mayor,
participation.
I
I'm
might
sorry.
add that I told people that they could listen today, so I apologize to them.
Thank you. I didn't get that. Yeah. Audience participation. Anyone having an item of business to present to the city council that does not appear on the agenda, please come forward at this time. Max Sassine, tell us your name.
I'm Max Sassine, and I rise today as the chairman of the McMahon Auditorium Authority. Just wanted to give a quick update on two items. We got a $20,000 grant from the National Endowment for the Arts, and it was called the Big Read, and that just happened this last month or so, and we did it in conjunction with a Native American Heritage Month. And one of the things that we were so excited about getting the $20,000 grant was that we had put a proposal together in that grant application for 20 events to happen in 1 month. And we were kind of surprised when we got the grant, but I think those people that were reviewing the grant application, well, they just couldn't imagine that anybody would do 20 events in 1 month. So we did that, and it was a huge success. And kind of the culmination event was a Native American play that we hosted at McMahon Auditorium. It's called 49. And so that went really well, and I was excited about that. I wanted to report that. And the second thing I wanted to report, it's come out on the city website, but Lawton was selected to host the 2023 Oklahoma Arts Conference. So some of those people that are in the arts in different parts of the state decided that there's something going on in Lawton, Oklahoma, and I think they want to come here and see what it is. So that's in October of 2023. It's a conference that we were successful in getting. So I wanted to report that, and we're super excited. We're going to do special events during that weekend in October, maybe a concert at McMahon Auditorium and maybe some things at LCT for those people coming for the conference. So I wanted to report that. The last thing, then I'll let you get on with your meeting, is that I've accepted a post, a volunteer post on a project. Now, if you guys know me and my children, you know that this is not an uncommon thing. But the thing about it is that I just wanted to. I'm not going to speak about the project. Yes. Okay, I can't speak about that. Okay. Well, I was going to just mention that I'm part of that, so that's all.
We can pull the item and you can speak. It's on the consent agenda.
Okay, well, I'll just hold that. I'll just hold that thought then. But anyway, I wanted to let you know what's going on at McMahon Auditorium, and we're happy about that. And Jason Poudrier is doing a fantastic job for Arts and Humanities, and I just wanted to recognize him too.
Jason,
He's got almost as much grants as his salary. So he's doing great. All right, thank
okay,
you.
and you have 15 seconds left, so we'll do that, and applause for Jason and all of the people that work for McMahon, the McMahon Auditorium Authority and the Arts and Humanities Committee under that. Let's give them a round of applause. Is there anybody else that would like to come forward under audience participation to speak on any item that is not on the agenda? Seeing none, I will close audience participation. We need to strike on the business items, number 19. Strike number 19 on business items. Consent agenda. The following items are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted with one motion. Should discussion be desired on an item, that item will be removed from the consent agenda prior to action and considered separately. Are you wanting to pull item 6 to talk? Yes, please. Okay, we're going to pull item 6.
The 8 and 9, are those the two things we just talked about with the Water Resources Board? Are they affiliated? Okay.
Is he wanting to pull them? No. Are you wanting to pull them?
No. I just want some clarification.
Oh, okay.
We just addressed.
All right. Any other things you want to pull? If not, we need a motion.
Move to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item number 6.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion carries 7-0. Item number 6, consider approving the location of the all-inclusive playground to be located in Elmer Thomas Park. Dwayne.
Go ahead. Well, it doesn't matter. This is all Lita with Jeanette Klein and Max and I knew Max when he actually had real all hair and brown and it was curly, and I had dark hair too. That was before we started doing all these projects, and our hair fell out. So, and he's a grandpa now, so that's how that works. But thank goodness he's before me. But Max, why don't you fill us in on all-inclusive playground, sir?
So I just wanted to tell a story about Elmer Thomas Park. There was a time in Elmer Thomas Park where it did not have a playground. Well, it did. There were a couple of little swing sets and maybe a slide or two, but it was really small. And do what? And one cannon, yes, which we kept. But in about 2010, there was no really nice playground in the park. So Betsy Parks was the president of the Board of Realtors at that time, and we were just coming off some community projects. We were building those Habitat for Humanity homes, and we were doing those blitz builds where we build them in a week, so it was kind of fun. But we had a meeting, Betsy and I, and we decided that those Habitat for Humanity homes were a really great project, but they really directly affected one family. And so we were trying to imagine, something that the Board of Realtors could engage in that would affect all of the citizens of Lawton, not just one family at a time. And that's when we came up with the idea of the playground in the park. And so the Board of Realtors voted, and we started raising money, and we worked with Kim Shahan at the time as the Parks and Rec Director, and we decided that Lawton, Oklahoma needed a destination playground in the destination park. And so the initial cost of that was $400,000. We raised the big end of that. There was some city help, obviously, on the preparation of the land, the dirt work, and some of the other things, and then eventually the bathroom. And so we kind of have what we have today based on that. But that was like 2012, I think, is when we let that go. So sometime after that, my friend Joe Chesko, another realtor, had a vision of expanding that playground. And the nature of that expansion, he thought, in his mind and his heart, would be that the city destination playground would be more ADA accessible, that there's people in our community and kids in our community that have a hard time on regular playgrounds. And so this Children's United came about, okay? And Jeanette Klein and Joe Chesko and others raised a significant amount of money, lots and lots of events. And to date, Jeanette, you reported to me that you had raised over $500,000.
$523,000 has been raised, and we have $347,000.
And so we've already purchased a lot of equipment when it was on sale, and we put that, we're storing that in the National Guard Armory now, or the building that used to be the National Guard Armory. What I want to report today is that I've accepted a post with Children's United, and we built that original playground, 20,000 square feet, and I've just accepted the responsibility of building the 20,000 square feet addition. So what I want to report also is that when this first started out, I was under a misconception. I thought we were going to build a little bump out on the playground, right? So we got a 20,000 square foot playground that a lot of communities would want to have. I mean, it's a very nice playground. And I thought we were going to maybe add, 20 by 20 or 50 by 50 or something. But then when I got involved in this a little bit, I realized that we're doubling the size of the playground in the park, okay? And it'll be a special surface that is rubberized and is, safe for everybody. And it's not just a park for kids that are challenged in that way. It's a park for everybody. So all 40,000 square feet will be available to the citizens of Lawton, and I'm pretty excited about that because I think as great as the ADA nature of the playground is, I think it's just kind of cool that Lawton, Oklahoma is getting ready to double the size of our premier playground in our destination park. So I wanted to just make you aware of that. It was kind of an aha to me, and this agenda item, we've selected the area, we figured out how to do it. There was challenges in the Elmer Thomas Park. We wanted to design the new playground where it did not cross major water lines and sewer lines that are existing in the park, but we've managed to do that. And we're excited about starting. So when you guys vote here in a minute and vote yes on this, then that's going to be the gun going off. I mean, that's the starting gate. So we're going to start the playground. Yes.
How much does that post you accepted pay?
Yeah, that would be a volunteer
Zero.
position.
But the pay's really good. It doesn't pay money, but it pays good. And I
Well,
want
that's
to
right.
I want to thank you for taking that. And it's people like you that make us a great community because you get involved in so much. And we have a lot of citizens that do that. But you're standing in front of us, so I want to say thank you for that. Okay?
Well, I
Do I
appreciate
have a
that.
motion for approval?
Yes.
Go ahead.
No, I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion for approval, a second, discussion or debate. Mr. Byrd.
I just have one thing to say. Number one, Max is a good friend, but he doesn't do anything halfway. If you've seen any of the projects he's done with his kids or other kids.
His kids don't need.
Yes. And then Max tries to drag me into everything he's doing, and I hate it. But no, I'm just playing. We're good friends. But what I think about this is that most of you know that Joe Chesko came to me and told me that he had seen a child unable to play in our playground. That's what started this. That's what started this. And he said the child couldn't play because the wheelchair couldn't go out, but the brothers and sisters were able to play. And it broke his heart. And he said, Jay, we got to do something. And so he started gathering people. And then we had Dancing with the Stars, which was an event in itself. But we started raising money. And then COVID happens, and Joe passes away from COVID. And this wonderful woman that said, I'm going to take this on, and I'm going to run with it, and I'm going to do everything I can. I don't know a thing about how I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do it. Comes to Lita and says, I need your help all that I can, but please, my name is Jeanette Klein, and I'm here to take over and try to do what I can. So we need to thank you for taking it over. Thank you, Mayor.
Further discussion or debate?
Just one. Max, I've been around many of your projects, and everything you do is first rate. I can't wait to see how this winds up under yours and Jeanette's leadership. So make us proud.
Any further discussion or debate? Please vote. Motion carries 7-0. And we move to unfinished business. Consider the following damage claim. What am I doing wrong, Joe? You're standing there and you're not up
I was
next.
wondering if I could ask a favor and move the staff report up, just after.
I thought we were tagging that on to something else. Is it staff report only?
Yes.
Okay, we're moving that staff report up to right now. Hold on a minute. Update on City Hall project, Joe Painter, Director of Engineering, go.
I appreciate it. I actually have to get back to Oklahoma City here pretty quickly, so I thank you for doing that. I needed to give you a quick update. We had a change order on the parking lot that it's a little confusing, but it was actually $0. The city manager executed it, and when we execute those change orders that are under his purvey, we're supposed to let the council know what we did as soon as we can at the next council meeting. So this is a change order that he executed. It was for,
Hold on just a minute, because that's what it was, 11 and 12. You were going to tag on after that, but 11 or 12 are about those two change orders.
those were about amendments to the architect's contract, and I can explain those too if you want me to.
So that doesn't have anything to do with what you're talking about. Okay,
sir.
go for it.
It's all the same project. Those were amendments to the architect's contract to do the lighting. We needed to correct some paperwork and to do help us order and pick up the furniture for the city hall when we get it done. This change order is for the construction, for adding some irrigation. We left out the irrigation for all the islands in the parking lot and the design, so we had to add that in there. We had a contingency in their contract though, so even though it was $15,000, the contract technically there's no cost increase. You're going to get a full update on the entire City Hall project at the next council meeting, where we're going to recommend that you approve plans and start the advertisement for the rest of the project. So we'll have a PowerPoint presentation and even a bigger update on the City Hall. That's all I had, sir.
Okay, it's not all you have. Item 11 and 12 have you as the staff information source, so we're going to go ahead and address those now so you can.
Okay?
All right. Item number 11, consider approving amendment number 2 with MA Plus Architecture LLC on project EN 2004A, City Hall renovation funded through LEDA in the amount of $5,080. Joe?
That was the paperwork. We had LEDA.
It's on the consent agenda.
Sorry, I messed
My
everything
mistake.
up. It's my fault.
When we jump around like this, I get confused. Of course, I live in a state of confusion, but I get more confused sometimes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a safe trip. Okay, we are now on item 15. Consider the following damage claim recommended for denial. Robert Mueller in the amount of $27,144.27. Who's the staff information on this? John.
Council Mayor, this item originally came before you back on the 13th of September. Our recommendation for the claim at that time was denial. However, Councilman Fortenbaugh asked us some questions specifically to the right-of-way, and I believe that we've satisfactorily answered those questions. The bottom line is we're still recommending denial. When city workers responded to a water main break out there, they responded under emergency conditions. They went out there, they addressed the water main breakage. There was no notice for the electrical lead that was part of the sign. So when city staff started to excavate, they hit the electrical lead that they didn't have any notice was there. They called in locates prior to showing up and digging, which they aren't required to do under emergency circumstances. So there's that component of the damage. Additionally, Dr. Mueller alleged that city crew damaged some of the asphalt parking lot that's at the business. However, there's plenty of evidence to show that parking lot was cracked. It was pooling prior to city staff showing up to fix the water main break. Any damage that did occur, and there's no evidence that city staff caused the damage or was negligent when they were repairing the water main, would have been incidental to the repair. So for those reasons, we're still recommending denial of this claim.
So this was tabled when it first came through?
Yes, on the 13th of September.
Okay. Questions, council? Seeing no questions, do I have a motion? You do have a question?
It seems like I remember something about the big rocks or something on the property, and whether that could have caused the damage.
Yeah,
or...
that's a possibility as well. There are large landscape boulders that were located near the sign that had to be moved so city staff could repair the main. So yes, that is accurate.
Mayor, council. My question on this was, I see words that say make, maybe caused this, may have been responsible for this. That makes me really question. I think those boulders have been there a long time. I have personally a problem thinking that those boulders may have caused the water break. And also, if the utilities were marked, why was that electrical line severed?
Ma'am, the electrical line was severed because crews had no notice that it was there. So when Dr. Mueller submitted his permit as part of the new sign, the electrical lead location was not on the permit. So we had no notice that it was actually there and on the sign.
But it says that the utilities were marked. before the digging, Rusty.
Okay, utilities that are called to Okie One Call go out to all the owners of the utilities that are public. The electrical for the sign was a private electrical out on public right-of-way. And the locates were not in place on the private electrical. The public electrical was marked, but all the private electrical was not marked.
If it makes sense, that basically when we call for line locates, they give you gas, they give you electric, and hopefully, you know, I mean, maybe
Water, sewer, fiber
sewer,
optics.
fiber
that
optic
are-
stuff
that are
like.
public.
But something going to a personal sign would not be on that anyway.
Yes, it's not on the maps, and
Wouldn't be
they
ever
would not
shown.
have called for any, this one call does not call for any private utilities other than the property owners to take that responsibility. When they put it out there, they take that responsibility, that they have to keep it marked in case an incident like this occurs.
Mayor, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Could boaters, those size small boaters, be
They
a
were on the
culprit?
right-of-way also.
Huh?
The boulders were on the right-of-way also.
But could they, it says it possibly could have been
During
responsible.
the removal process of those boulders that were out on the right-of-way, they could have, when you pick them up, they could roll and stuff, and they could have done some damage to the electrical. But it was during that process of relocating those boulders.
I didn't mean for the electrical, I meant for the water break
No,
itself.
I don't think the boulders had really anything to do with the break. But they'd been there for a long time now. The main did break. We're not disagreeing that the main did break, so.
Mayor,
Yes.
I've read this report 100 times, and like usual, Chris Hall is overly thorough on, I mean, I'm not saying anything negative by that. He is completely thorough on stuff. The issue is not, to me, is not what city workers did or didn't do. They did what they had to do, and they fixed the break, and they had all rights to go in there, dig the hole, whatever. What concerns me is some of the damage that was caused by the water itself. And so obviously that electrical line, nobody knew it was there. It's hard to show the city having any responsibility for that. But the water did damage his parking lot. I know we've had previous claims where a water main will break, it'll flood a house next to it, and then we pay for the cleanup and fixing that house. The report also says we had no prior notification, but if you go out to that area of town, it's got holes dug all over the place where we had to fix the line. We know we got a bad line. I think at the very least, we should pay to repair his parking lot. And I'd make a motion that we approve the parking lot repair. It looks like it was $14,763.
We have a motion on the floor to pay for the parking lot repairs in the amount of $14,763. Is there a second? Second. We do have a second. Discussion or debate? Seeing none, please vote. Motion carries 6-1. Moving us to business items, number 16, hold a public hearing and consider an ordinance annexing approximately 160 acres of land into the corporate limits of the city of Lawton in the general vicinity of Southwest Bishop Road and 112th Street, located in the southwest quarter of Section 1, Township 1 North, Range 13 West, Indian Meridian, Comanche County, Oklahoma, classifying the land as temporary I-4 heavy industrial district zoning classification and declaring an emergency. Who's the staff on this?
So Mayor and Council, this is 160 acres that is part of the overall land grant that, for Project Blue Braveheart. Hopefully by next council meeting, you'll see the redevelopment agreement. But part of that tentative tentative redevelopment agreement is that there will be a conveyance of land as a incentive for that project locating here, and this is part of that. So this 160 acres is outside the city limits. That's why we're proposing that it be annexed. And then eventually there'll be a plan for extension of services out to that area.
As well as a TIF amendment plan to include it in that TIF plan. Any questions? Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Oh, public hearing.
Oh,
At this time, I will open the public hearing. Anybody wishing to speak on this item of annexation, please come forward at this time. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Motion.
Move to approve.
Motion for approval and a second. Discussion or debate? Please vote. Oh, read the ordinance.
An ordinance providing for the attachment of the southwest quarter of Section 1, Township 1 North, Range 13 West, into the corporate limits of the City of Lawton, Comanche County, Oklahoma, classifying said tract as temporary I-4 heavy industrial district zoning classification for a period not exceeding 1 year, and declaring an emergency.
Please vote. Motion carries 7-0. Moving us to item 17, hold a public hearing to consider an ordinance for a change of zoning from R1 Single Family Dwelling District to C1 Local Commercial District zoning classification, and a resolution for a change in the 2030 land use plan from professional office transition to commercial for the property located at 3315 to 3321 Northwest Cache Road, Lawton, Oklahoma, 73505. Cameron.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. This is a application request for a change of zoning and an amendment to the 2030 land use plan. This is located off of Cache Road on the north side, just east of 34th Street. Council approved a rezoning just west of that for HTO to go in the C1 just located to the west. This is a request to rezone from R1 single family dwelling to the C1 commercial zone. The surrounding zoning is R1 to the east, R1 to the north, C1 to the west, and C5 to the south across the street. The current land use plan has this as professional office and transition, and the proposed is commercial. The land is currently vacant, and the proposed use of the property will be a dental office, light retail, and business office. The City Planning Commission held a public hearing on this item on October 27th and recommended to approve subject to the conditions of adding a tree buffer on the north and east property line and a OPEG screening on the property to the line to the east. The notice of public hearing was mailed to 23 property owners within 300 feet of the requested area on November 2nd and posted in the Lawton Constitution on November 18th. There were no calls for or against received.
Is that it?
Yes, sir.
Questions, council? Seeing none, I'll open the public
Mayor.
hearing.
Was the opaque screening on the east or on the north towards the housing?
The OPEG screening is required on the north and east property line.
Okay, thank you.
Because they're both residentially zoned properties. If, just like on HTO, they rezoned, they were required an OPEG screening on the east side until something was developed to the east of it. If this was approved, HTO would no longer be required the OPEG screening on the east property line, only the north side. So that would fall under this too. So if this continues to track that way, if something to the east was to rezone, they wouldn't be required on the east side, only the north.
Mr. Burke.
What kind of opaque screening are we talking about?
OPEG screening would be, you're not allowed to see through it.
Right.
6 to 8 foot is what city code states. So a wood, a CMU, or a metal fence.
All right, thank you.
Is there any further council questions or discussion? Seeing none, I will open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this item, please come forward at this time. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Can we get a motion? Motion for approval and a second. Please read the ordinance. Waive the reading. Thank you. And your motion was for approval of the recommendation, which includes read the title only.
An ordinance changing the existing zoning classification. An ordinance changing the existing zoning classification from the R1 single-family dwelling district to the C1 local commercial district zoning classification on the tract of land which is hereinafter more particularly described in section 1 hereof, authorizing changes to be made upon the official zoning map in accordance with this ordinance.
Please vote. Motion carries 7-0. Moving us to item 18, hold a public hearing to consider an ordinance for a change of zoning from A1 General Agricultural District to the R1 Single Family Dwelling District zoning classification for the property located at 3510 Northeast Cache Road, Lawton, Oklahoma, 73505. Cameron.
Alrighty, this is a rezoning application request submitted to the Planning Department for a piece of property located on the northeast corner of Flower Mound Road and Cache Road on the east side of Lawton. This is 134 acres, currently zoned A1. There's currently one residential house built on it. The intention would be to develop it as a subdivision. So the proposed zoning is R1 single family dwelling. The properties to the north is currently zoned R4 and R1. The east is A1, the south is R4, and the west is a mixture of flood and A1 and R1. Like I said, this is a proposed subdivision. Most of the land is currently vacant. The City Planning Commission held a public hearing on October 27th. The recommended action was the recommended approval. This notice was noticed to 37 property owners within 300 feet on November 2nd and was posted in the Lawton Constitution on November 18th. There were no calls for or against.
Council, do you have questions? Seeing none, I will open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this item, please come forward at this time. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion for approval, and that includes to waive the reading of the ordinance and read the title only. Please read the title.
An ordinance changing the existing zoning classification from the A1 General Agricultural District to the R1 Single Family Dwelling District zoning classification on the tract of land which is hereinafter or particularly described in section 1 hereof, authorizing changes to be made upon the official zoning map in accordance with this ordinance.
Please vote. Motion carries 7-0. 19 was struck. Item 20, consider hearing a presentation from Half Associates regarding the status of the Lakes Master Plan. I guess we do that. We consider, does that mean we have to vote to get the presentation? It says consider hearing. Do we have to vote to hear the presentation?
No.
I think we just hear the presentation.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Half Associates is here to give a presentation on the status of the Lakes Master Plan. We have Scott Barnett, Lenny Hughes, and James Hazard.
You guys are from Oklahoma City?
We are from Oklahoma City.
You sure look good with those I Love Lawton pins on.
I was going to say, this is the best pin I've put on since I put this one on.
Yeah, I'm going to be up there tomorrow, and I'm looking for you to see if you're still wearing it.
Well, for the record then, let me say my name is Scott Barrett, and our address is 1111 North Lee Avenue in Oklahoma City. Now you can find us. Thank you for taking time to let us make this presentation to you today. Again, my name is Scott Barrett. I am the operations manager for Half Associates in Oklahoma, obviously in Oklahoma City. Blue light's on. I am a professional engineer. I am not a park planner or a landscape architect, but I have brought the gentlemen with me who are. I did want to take a moment to talk a little bit about the Parks Master Plan, the Lakes Master Plan. We had a pretty successful Parks Master Plan for y'all, including some additional services that were tossed in on that contract. We understand that I understand that there are some modifications that need to be made to that contract for some population data that needs to be corrected, which we're working on. I also wanted to mention to you that we did get behind schedule.
Actually, I'm going to step in here and explain to the council, because I don't think everybody's aware of it, but all the data in that report was based on a population of 92 or 93,000, but 77,000, or the number approximately 77,000 that the census came up with that live off of Fort Sill should have been used, and that's what he's talking about.
Right. And we're making that correction now. Should have that for you next week. In 2022, we had some performance issues in our office. I don't really want to go into a lot of details on that, but wanted to apologize for the performance issues and how they affected your Lakes Master Plan schedule. So we are behind on that schedule. We are aware of it. We had another problem that occurred in late October where our project manager for that project has left the company. We informed Christine and Dwayne about that at the end of October. Since then, we have been all hands on deck trying to get this thing reorganized, get our heads around what was going on, and also apologize to Christine and to Dwayne for some of the communication that they got from multiple people who were trying to get our arms around the project. But I'm here today to tell you that we've got that all figured out now, and we're ready to move forward. I want to introduce a couple of people to you today, and one that's not here. Lenny Hughes, who's behind me here, is our national practice leader for planning and landscape architecture. He oversees all the planning and landscape architecture for half in all of Southeast Oklahoma, United States. He is a graduate of Oklahoma State University, has 27 years of experience, and with Lenny and myself, we are going to be responsible for making sure this Lakes Master Plan and the two task orders that you approved earlier today on your consent docket are fully staffed and that they're getting done. Not present today is a gentleman named David McCaskill. David is our Director of Sports, Entertainment, and Tourism. I bring that up because that category actually covers parks with sports fields and parks with aquatic facilities, which we're getting ready to help you with some aquatics master plan and some splash pads. So he will be heavily involved in these projects going forward. He's got 35 years of experience as a landscape architect, and by coincidence, he has worked with our new project manager, I guess hiding behind me here, James Hazard, who is in our Oklahoma City office. David was James's mentor for 9 years, and so they'll be working very closely together to move your projects forward. James has 9 years of experience. He's a graduate from Oklahoma State University, has been in our office for 4 years doing landscape architecture and planning, and was working as the under Nate Clare for the 4 years that he's been with the company. So he's pretty familiar with all the work that Nate's been doing. So going forward, the primary point of communication with HAF will be through James for everything coming in and coming out. You can always feel welcome to contact myself or Lenny or David McCaskill for anything if you want to copy us on that so we can make sure we know what's going on and help James with what needs to be done. I encourage you to reach out to me if you have any performance issues going forward. We do not want that to happen again. So I'm going to turn the presentation over. We've got some slides for you that James is going to go over, give you a status update of where we are on the Lakes Master Plan project. And then also going to talk a little bit about schedules. So James?
Thank you all. Real quick, I want to introduce myself again, James Hazard with the HAF office in Oklahoma City. And today I'm going to be kind of going over some of the projects that we've been working on with the City of Lawton and give you an update on those, and as well as pass it off to Lenny later on to talk about the Lakes Master Plan planning process. So our first slide here is the agenda. Scott did a good introduction of the team. Like I said, I'll be talking over the projects, Lakes Master Plan schedule, and we'll follow up with questions and kind of the next steps. Again, the team, Scott Barrett, our operations manager for Oklahoma City, he oversees myself and the office as well as the projects that we have with you all. Lenny Hughes, again, our PLA practice leader, myself, James Hazard, Brandon Hay, project manager and landscape architect, and then Rebecca Izzard, planner that's also assisting with this project. In addition to the HAF team, we've brought on Dean Runyon and Associates. They are a Parks and Rec as well as a camping and RV consultant. They will be helping us with the market analysis and research of the project to kind of help determine what is best for the Lakes Master Plan and some of the components of that. Really good team to work with, and we're excited to continue that relationship. You know, I myself, I may not live in Ardmore, or Lawton, excuse me, at the moment, but I have visited here several times. When I was working with Dave McCaskill, I lived in Texas, and we often brought all of our friends and relatives up to Oklahoma to recreate, camp, and Lawton was one of those spots. So I'm really excited to be involved on a project that I can be a part of once the project is complete. And now even that I live in Oklahoma City, I bring my family down to Lawton to also camp, RV, recreate, and visit. And again, I'm very excited to continue that. To speak a little bit about the projects that we have with you all, I want to touch on one that we've already completed, and Scott mentioned the Lawton Parks Master Plan. That was completed in early of 2023, and we've committed to making an amendment to that document, as Scott mentioned, here in the next week to prepare for some other meetings. The next project that came along was the Lakes Master Plan. That came along while we were doing the Parks Master Plan. It was tabled or postponed for a while until that plan was complete and some direction could be put to the Lakes Master Plan. Those lakes consist of Lake Latonka and Lake Ellsworth. And in addition to those two projects, we have the Lee West Concept Plan. We did an early iteration of that and delivered that in September of 21. Since then, there's been some staffing changes and the needs for the site have changed a little bit. And now that we're looking at the Aquatics Master Plan and some of these larger elements, we will be revisiting that plan and providing a revision of that at a later time once the Aquatics Master Plan is complete. Another project that we have started on is the Elmer Thomas Concept Plan and Master Plan just up the road. That is an exciting project to be a part of as well, and we are in the middle of that. There's an element of the Elmer Thomas Master Plan that's the aquatics component, and again, as we're evaluating the overall aquatics needs for the community, a portion of that will be kind of put on hold until we kind of wrap our minds around that and have some more direction. In the map, you can see the projects that we're working on within the city bounds. Lee West Park, Elmer Thomas Park, and Eastside Park. We do not currently have a task order sent over yet, but that's one that we're working on. Wanted to put priority and our focus on Elmer Thomas, the Lakes Master Plan, and get those moving, and the aquatics plan as well. So just a brief overview of the lakes. If you're not familiar, I'm sure most of you are. but our involvement with the project, visiting the site and touring with city staff, as well as doing our research on related planning projects that might impact the activities at the lake. Our understanding of the lake at this time is two different uses with a lot of overlap in what that is as far as recreation goes. Recreation, camping, hunting, fishing, boating. There's a lot of activities that are occurring at the lake, primarily with Lake Latonka being a more active recreation lake, where Lake Ellsworth also has some recreation components to it, but is more of a passive use, as our understanding is right now. And these two images kind of show some of the ins and outs of the lake, current facilities, and what all is surrounding the lake property. Like I mentioned, Lake Latonka is more of the active lake with more improvements and infrastructure there on the east side and the south, whereas Lake Ellsworth does have some recreation, but it's not nearly as dense as the other lake. And just in general, as a project orientation, like I mentioned, I came up from Texas. I brought a lot of people that I knew up to this area to recreate. And as you look at this map, it's kind of striking that North Fort Worth, Dallas area is just as close as Oklahoma City. And the area in southeast Oklahoma, Beavers Bend and those areas are capitalizing on that population down there as a tourism draw, as an economic draw, to increase revenue and potential visitors, as well as Oklahoma City. And I think this project, Lawton, you guys are in a really good position to utilize where you're at, close to the highway and close to these communities. And with that, I will turn it over to Lenny to talk about the planning process.
All right, thank you, James. And so just going through the planning process, and a lot of my background has been in the realm of parks, recreation. I do a lot of lake planning for a lot of communities in Texas. And so just going to share with you what we think this is the best approach for here for Lawton there. And so, as James had pointed out, we've been really active, very busy here the last several months, where we had several tours on both lakes on developing and understanding what's there existing, as well as some of the development of the base maps, understanding what roads are, utilities, some of the other amenities there within the park sites themselves. Also, back in October, we had a very extensive and large public engagement process where we had a public meeting. We had anywhere from close to about 150 people there. They were in attendance, a lot larger than we had ever anticipated, but we understand that there's a lot of interest in both the lakes there. And over the last few months also, we've been very busy with our partners, Dean Runyon, and the market and economic analysis. And as James pointed out, your position here in Lawton, in proximity to Oklahoma City and Dallas, you guys are really in the driver's seat to really start to attract people here to your lakes. And as we talk to some of the citizens and the staff, we understand that people are coming from Texas area to recreate. They use the lakes for boating, fishing. Fishing and hunting is really good out there also. And then they're also attracting people from the Oklahoma City market as well. And so this is really the foundation that we use as far as understanding the facts, looking at the figures, understanding and getting stakeholder input. This will start to develop the overall program for the lake. And then from there, we'll look at a preliminary master plan, get comments, present that to staff and also the city council, get your input in. Then once we receive that, then we'll finalize the master plan renderings and have the cost and phasing for this overall plan development. So this is our master planning process for both Ellsworth and Lake Latonka there. And so some of the key components of a master plan is really having a concept plan that represents what the park will look like in the future. Understand what the trends are, not just here locally, but also what the other communities are doing as far as lake plans and what's making their parks successful. Getting input from the different park users and from the public is also key to help envision what these improvements will look like. Then lastly, you're going to have a whole laundry list of elements and components, but being able to prioritize the park improvements and identify those costs so that way we have a plan to move forward there. And so just hit a little bit on the public input. Again, we had close to about 150 people there Back in October, around the room, we had a significant amount of attendance. We had several boards that were placed around the room. We asked questions on what are some of the top 5 amenities or top 3 amenities that you'd like to see in the lake. Also, we asked, some of the things that you do not want to see here. And so we were able to compile all the information. We've got kind of our preliminary findings and results from that. And so that will begin to be the basis for our planning efforts. We do have opportunity upcoming here to have additional meetings and inputs to gather information from other key stakeholders or user groups for the lake. So another important part of this process is the economic market analysis. And as James had mentioned before, and just some of our findings and what we have heard from staff that there's a lot of revenue potential that's built up here on both the lakes, but we also understand there's a lot of revenue going out. I mean, the meaning is that you're spending capital expenditures on maintenance, operations, policing, and so we have to be able to find a balance between what revenue that we're generating, what is our revenue potential if we're going to provide amenities for the lake, and what are those costs. But we also know from our consultant, Dean Runyon, that there's a lot of built-up potential here in Oklahoma. James had mentioned Broken Bow. I go to Broken Bow quite often, probably a couple times a year, in that area in the southeast part of Oklahoma. And you cannot imagine the amount of people traveling in from Texas, Arkansas, all parts of Oklahoma, driving down to Broken Bow. Actually, it's also one of the top 10 national destinations here in the country, Broken Bow is. And so we see there's a lot of potential for lakes, especially the beauty of in Lawton. If you got 2 lakes, one that can balance the active recreation that we have here in the community and what people are desiring, but also for me, I like to hunt and fish also, and so just being the hunting, the fishing, and just being able to enjoy the natural characteristics of Lake Ellsworth there. So understanding market competition, what does competition look like? And so you've got some really good, in Texas, you got the vineyards on Lake Grapevine. 20 plus years ago, if you looked at that lake, it was very similar. There was not a lot of use. They had some facilities, amenities that were not of high quality. Since then, the city has gone in and invested in the infrastructure, put in roadway improvements. They've added in a new camp store, some cabins that they can pull in and pull out. And so the vineyards is really, if you look it up now online, I mean, you're probably 3 or 4 months out before any type of bookings there. Same thing here locally at Lake Murray State Park. I know it's got some unique design elements that's been improved over the last several years. It's a destination that's off of 35. People are driving up and down the highway and stopping there at Lake Murray there. Matter of fact, my father, years ago, he used to work for the Soil Conservation Service in Oklahoma, and so that was one of their corporate retreats was coming to Lake Murray. So I got a chance to visit that when I was a small kid. And so as bad as COVID has been for everyone, we have seen an increase in the recreation. And so camping, RVing, that's been an uptick for the last 2 or 3 years. And so right now you guys are sitting in a good place to really capture that market and be able to, to increase the revenue opportunities and potential here within Lawton area. And so one of the things that we have to do is balance, revenue versus recreation. And I tell you, we heard a lot from the citizens here that were participating on the 18th, but we have to be able to look at it from a revenue standpoint, but also from a recreational standpoint. We want to make sure that if we're investing money into the lakes themselves, then what is that revenue potential with that? And so that's what Dean is going to cover. But from our standpoint, we have to look at, well, if the revenue, or there enhanced lake amenities, what do those look like? Is it additional RV sites? What type of ampage is going to be there so it's going to attract those users there? What are the other amenities such as picnic pavilions, restrooms, shower facilities? What type of camping opportunities we're going to provide. Is it going to be a mid-level service or a high-level service? We want this to be a memorable experience because in my first time that I went to Broken Bow 10 years ago, such a memory for me, but now I tell my friends, my family, and now they want to come back. Matter of fact, we're going to go there in January just as a family gathering. But these are places where memories are made. And just like we heard from the citizens, they have a lot of memories there from their childhood. And so we have to make sure there's a balance of the revenue potential. I heard a gentleman talk earlier about having a destination park at Elmer Thomas. Well, there needs to be a destination park also at Lake Latonka. And there's also opportunities to enhance that with special events and tourism. But the balancing part of that is understanding the needs of local residents. What is their perception of existing facilities, amenities? There are ways to fix the roads, fix the restrooms, taking some of those low-hanging fruit and address those items while still investing in that. And now we're starting to attract people here to the community. Also, resident satisfaction commitment. You know, looking at the local users, local and resident uses, there may be some type of discounted fees. We've done that in other communities where we have discounted fees for that. But at the end of the day, it has to have balanced results. You know, balanced results in the sense that we're making money, we're bringing in revenue, and so that's kind of all self-sustaining and it's paying for itself in the park there. So we've got our schedule here, and James had mentioned that we've got two other projects, which is the Aquatics Master Plan and the Elmer Thomas Park. Our thoughts is to have this all wrapped up by March, end of March, early April, that we're going to consolidate meetings and meet where we can with the staff and also have a mid-level presentation, probably that second or third week in January to City Council, just to give you guys an update on where we are in the process. But also our commitment is to have bi-weekly meetings with staff just to make sure we're on schedule, on task for the projects moving forward there. So at that point, I'd like to open up for any questions that you
So I just want to, I think I heard we're going to get an update in January.
Yes, sir.
And we're going to be done by the end of March. Is that what I heard?
That is correct.
Okay, I'm writing that down. Is it, I think I'm hearing that we can make an investment. It's likely that we can make an investment as a city and then it be self-supporting financially. Am I hearing that?
That is correct. Because right now, when the really good example is Grapevine. And Grapevine is kind of an anomaly, and we use that as our foundation for a lot of the recreation planning that we're doing. RVing is at its highest right now, and investments in public infrastructure, roads, utilities, restrooms, amenities, providing these quality type amenities. People are coming in, and there's like this National RV Association where they travel to the entire country looking for destinations like this. And you know, just the view, I don't know if you saw the view of the mountain range on behind the lake, you know, it's just, you know, it's very, very attractive. And so our thought is that, you know, by investing in, you know, it's a phased approach. You know, Grapevine didn't become successful overnight. They had phased approach on, you know, let's look at some basic infrastructure. So let's improve the roadways and provide, you know, nice restrooms with showers and amenities. And so that's kind of that phased approach. Other part of that, we'll look at, well, what do we want to take down as our key area for RVing? And so we'll have bubble diagrams to kind of show you kind of a phase. You know, we're looking at, well, these are parts of the lake where it makes sense to provide some type of camping there. Also, we want to balance that by providing day-use activities for residents that live here. And so we have to balance out that overall approach, as well as capital expenditures, the phasing of the project. That way we can look at how does this, and part of Dean's also will be a revenue forecast, and then we'll understand what revenue is being generated over, you know, a 5-year, 10-year, and 20-year period.
Okay, when we get to March, I can tell you the questions I'm going to be asking for me. Is one, is there going to be a possibility for us to recover our investment from the city? And two, the comparisons to Grapevine, are they realistic to our area? I don't want your answer now. Council members, do you have questions? We'll start down here with Ms. Hankins. No, Kelly? And then Jay?
I just have one thing. I'm a camper, so I own a place about 80 miles south of Dallas that my camper stays at full time. I know none of you knew that, did you? They couldn't think of me doing that, but
Same here.
yeah. So I love it. I love it. But I have seen a decrease in the amount of people camping over the last year since COVID hit. Since COVID is now, you can now go where you were spending $75,000, $80,000 on a camper, and now that camper is $35,000. So trust me, I know I spend a lot. So I wish I could sell it.
You're saying the camper itself is going?
The campers are on sale like crazy. They're having a mass exodus of campers all across the nation. You just go to any Camp World in Oklahoma City, and it's level full, and they're on half price. But that's my concern, is there has to be a balanced approach, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, I do see that years ago, when I first got on council, we talked about doing some small cabins, those portable type. You come in, you skirt it, and it looks like a wood cabin, and kind of give you I go to Broken Bow too all the time. I went to Broken Bow 10 years ago. Broken Bow 10 years ago was totally different than Broken Bow today.
Absolutely.
These $1 million, $2 million places are amazing, and you have a bunch of people can stay there, but it's cool. Right? I don't think that won't work in Lawton, but a small kind of a facility might work here that you could do where people didn't have a camper, didn't want to. I'm too old to sleep on the ground. I don't want to sleep on the ground anymore. Can't get up and walk the next morning. So I tried it, and you just can't do it, So, but those little things to me means that's what I would hope that we would look for in the facilities that we're going to do, because there's a lot of people that go out there, whether or not it was COVID or before COVID. A lot of people went to the lakes, and there are a group of those lakes people that you met, and they're very, very vocal about that lake, and they should be. They should be. But that's just my comment. So.
Yeah, I want to say the camping trend has really been an uptick. We first did the Grapevine Lakes Master Plan from 2005 to 2008. And so that was back during the gasoline crisis, when gases were skyrocketing back then, And so what Grapevine did, instead of going out and building masses of RV sites and cabins, they only had a select few. And so I think they did 5 as a test model on the cabins. There were portable cabins they can bring in. They skirted it. They looked really nice, and they promoted it. And that's the thing that once it's built, we had to put in place a mechanism on your cities. Where's the young lady? The young lady that brought those 150 people here. I mean, having that on your website and promoting and selling that as part of the chamber also is really going to keep this thing exciting and the momentum moving there. And so that's one part of your question out there, Mr. Mayor, is how do we make this successful and build this thing over time? It's not just we're going to build it all at once. It's putting these things that are going to attract people in there, seeing these improvements, being made year after year, that we're, again, keeping that influx, the excitement, and the newness going on for the project.
Mr. Fortenbaugh. No, Ms. Johnson. Mr. Warren. Back to this side. Kelly, I think you had something.
So you just heard a presentation about our handicap accessible park that's coming. So what are the opportunities to build handicap accessible recreation cabins, docks, whatever, and we be looking at that in this?
Yeah, and so there's always, some of the plans we've done, there's always at least a dedicated set aside for handicap accessible cabins. The docks and fishing piers will always be handicap accessible, as well as providing the parking and access routes to those. So yes, those will be taken into consideration.
I don't see any other questions. Dwayne?
Mayor, just real quick, the public input meeting that we had, you guys had mentioned having additional public input meetings for specific groups, user groups. What's the schedule on when those are going to take place?
We need to coordinate that with Christine, but we'd like to get that done here over the next few weeks.
Okay. I would also mention, Mayor, that we had a Lakes and Lands meeting the other night, and we had a relatively full house, and there was a suggestion made with regard to a previous action council authorized on the short-term lease extensions. So we'll be bringing back an agenda item for the next meeting. Councilman Fortenbaugh was in attendance. He chaired that to maybe look at, instead of doing a short term, doing a one-year extension to buy us a little more time to make this transition.
Wonderful. Any other comments or questions? Mr. Fortenbaugh.
In regards to that Lakes meeting, Dwayne was there, Christine was there. That meeting went very well. And I want to thank you all for that, because you were there, you were heavily loaded with staff, and you were able to answer all of their questions, dispel all the rumors. I think they were all happy when they left.
All right. Are we ready to move on? Thank you very much. I've got this down. January, March. Okay?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to item number 21. Discuss establishing a strategic plan committee as permitted by the Lawton City Charter. So what this is about is the charter says the mayor shall have the authority to convene a citizen committee to review and propose revisions to the strategic plan. We're going to go at this a little bit different than we have in the past. I think our strategic plan that was made in, I think it's 2009, it was really a good strategic plan for the time, but a lot's changed since then. And it was presented all at once in a 3-inch binder. And it was presented at once. And it's kind of like trying to eat the whole salami. I can only eat it one bite at a time. And so that's the way we're going to present this one, or that's the plan. Once we establish a committee, and I have a target of getting this going by February, once we establish the committee, the first thing that we'll look at is what do the citizens want for the vision, the mission, the core values, and the maxims that we operate by. And we'll present that as one item, and hopefully some of that the council will see fit to codify into policy in some way or another. Then we'll move on to other areas a little at a time. The plan also is to engage citizens as much as possible, potentially online. Obviously, we're going to need some staff support. I have no doubt that we would get staff support just doing it, but I thought the formality of going through the council and putting that together was important. Now, do you have anything to say, John?
No, I don't.
Good. So I'll be happy to answer questions if there are any. If not, I'd appreciate a motion for approval. Motion for approval and a second. Is there discussion or debate? Please vote. Motion carries 7-0. Moving us to item 22. Consider reallocating $9,425,340,000, not a lot if you say it quick, of ARPA revenue replacement funds and passing resolution 22-blank, a budget amendment from fiscal year 2023, unallocated 2018 Propel CI funds in the amount of $574,660 for an incentive payment of $10 million to Project Blue Braveheart. Joe Don.
Okay, Mayor, I think that you've orchestrated this the last two meetings so that I'm here last, so we can see how long we can stretch this out. But I'm just going to skip right down to the chase on this and say that we have looked at several ways to pay this. I don't know what happened there. We've looked at several ways to pay this incentive that we've promised Blue Braveheart, and it's coming down to, I got a phone call last week that we need to pay it by as soon, we could need to pay it by as soon as next week. It is a good thing. We are recommending that you use the balance of the ARPA funds and some of our small portion of our CIP to pay this incentive, and I'll just be happy to answer any questions.
So I want to add a little bit to that, and I want to commend you for coming up with this plan. We've got to come up with $10 million. That comes from the CIP. Now, we have to borrow the money, and it's paid back through sales tax collections. But to borrow money for an incentive costs a higher interest rate than to borrow money for a public construction contract. Now, you know I've been a protector of the ARPA funds for the sports facility, but this makes sense and is going to save the city money to go ahead and use this money, and it qualifies. The lawyers have already said it qualifies, and it makes sense and will save the city some percentage in interest rate. Then we will have to do an amendment on the CIP funds, because it says not to exceed $8 million for the sports complex. But because we're bringing in this ARPA money to pay this industrial development number, it makes absolute sense to make the change, and I support this. Motions.
Move to approve.
A motion for approval? Hold on just a minute. I have a motion for approval in a second. Now, I'm not sure that we can do this, John, but I feel like we need to direct staff to bring back the amendment that goes with the CIP and the sports complex. Do we need to do that?
Well, I will say this, Mayor, that we have an amendment in, resolution in the works
Okay.
to take care of some of those issues with the CIP. We could certainly just add that. I mean, not issues with CIP, but
Okay.
to bring back some reallocations on some of that money, or reallocate money that has not been allocated. Does that
Okay,
make
in
sense?
particular, are you working on something with reference to this and the sports complex?
This can be added to it, but no, I have not worked on that.
John, can we add that to our motion, or is this too narrowly written? To direct them to bring back housekeeping resolution on CIP concerning sports complex? Too narrowly written. We're going with the motion for approval and the second, discussion or debate. Please vote. Motion carries 5-1. Item number 23, consider an ordinance pertaining to utilities amending section 22.12115, division 22.12, article 22.1, chapter 22, Lawton City Code 2015, relating to water fees and charges by amending the amount required for a water service deposit to a set amount of $150, and by adding language to accept letters of credit for commercial industrial customers, providing for severability and establishing an effective date.
Okay, this is just kind of some cleanup language in our ordinances that allows for us, our fees schedule sets our deposit rate at $150. We just needed that revision in the ordinances. And the second part of it is we had a request from a business and a local financial institution if we could take letters of credit from a banking institution and not necessarily a surety. Don't have any issues with that. We're still protected. And it allows our business community to put up a line of credit that we could draw on should they not make their utility bill. It makes sense. It's more friendly. It's a friendlier business circumstance for the businesses that want to utilize it, and we do have one that wants to utilize it now.
And to be clear, Council, this is in lieu of a deposit.
Yeah, this is in lieu of a cash deposit, yes.
Question. It says amending the amount required for a water service deposit to a set amount.
Currently our ordinance states that residential deposits are 150%, I think. which makes our staff in utility billing have to go through a calculation every time that a customer wants to come in to put up a deposit. The typical deposit now with our minimum bill is around $150. So we're just setting that as so there's no calculations. Customers know when they come in what my deposit's going to be and how I need to bring that in, whether I'm going to pay that with cash or whether I'm going to pay it with a letter of credit. We're not taking any of those options away, but it just sets that ordinance as a fee.
So anybody residential that comes in would be $150 water deposit?
Yes.
What is the average right now?
Right now, average utility bills are around $100, $120.
Now, wait a minute. It says applicants for water service. And leaving me to believe that the 150% is of the water number.
The way I've always calculated those in the past, maybe a little different here, but the way I've always calculated those in the past has been the utility bill.
It does say the average monthly bill, but it refers to water. It doesn't refer to utilities. And the water's only a portion of the
That's
utility
right. The
bill.
water's only a portion of it. The water is the part that we can go shut off. But there's also, it sets that bill, it sets that utility. Typically we collect around $150 for a utility deposit.
I'd like to know what the average utility deposit is right now, because this isn't going to affect me, but it's going to affect people that might have trouble having $150 to turn on their water. So,
well, on those people, because we do have those people now that have trouble coming up with the 150%, that we work it out where they can pay that out over time.
maybe the question is, how many more people is this going to affect?
In my opinion, it's not because our utility bill right now, because of the way we calculate that deposit number, it's not going to change the number of people that will affect, in my opinion.
Mr. Mayor, so what's the smallest bill?
The smallest utility bill you can have?
Yes.
Smallest utility bill that you can have is around $100.
Okay.
There's 23. You got $23 for the base price on water. You've got 30 some odd dollars for trash, I think. I don't have my bills in front of me, but you've got a base price for your sewer. So those are your utilities. Then you've got the fees that go along with those, the pumping fees, the Waurika landfill fee, the reverb fee. You got all those that go along with that, and that brings that typical minimum bill to the neighborhood of around $100.
I think my concern is not, I'm like the mayor, it's not me. It's the guy, you're talking about people that are renters, a lot of them, moving from a spot to spot and having to come up with $150. Number one, that seems very high to me. I don't know the number, but that seems very high. The other part I'm worried about is this thing with businesses being able to bring in a letter from...
Irrevocable letter of credit.
Yeah. Herein lies the problem, because we have apartments that have done this to us more than one time. How many times have we had to cut water off to an apartment complex?
I've got one, I've got what I'm looking at right now.
It's constant. And so I'm concerned that the bank's they'll bail on them after a while. They're only going to give them so much. So what are you going to tell them? They got to put up a $50,000 deposit? That's not going to happen.
No, but this is for commercial businesses, not necessarily an apartment complex. I don't know that I'd consider an apartment complex a commercial business.
Well, if I owned it, you would. Might be residential, high density, or whatever they call it. But anyway, my point is that there's just a lot of people out there that can't afford $150. And council, that's very high. That's high.
And that's typically, what it is now.
We've got two things here. And I very much support the businesses and the industry and a letter of credit from a bank. I've done that in other communities on apartments. So I very much support that. I'm very concerned that we don't have enough information to make the decision on the individual $150 as compared. And I don't want to stop discussion. I want everybody to say what they want to say, and Ms. Johnson wants to say something, but I'm going to ask that we table this till the next meeting on the 13th and let us know what the average is now, or maybe there's more information we even need than that. Ms. Johnson.
Mayor, before we move on,
Yes.
can I recommend that we table it for the first regular meeting in January, because the 13th already has like 20 business items on it?
Okay, that's a good point. Ms. Johnson.
Actually echoing on what you just said, and then I think, if I'm not mistaken, that it's specifically for the water bill, not all the utilities. So I think we need to look at that, and 150, even though, you know, you could work with some customers to pay that out over time, that's still a lot. And so,
Yeah, I understand that.
yeah,
Yes.
so I think maybe we, you know, when you're looking at these numbers, that we kind of reconsider that. That's just excessive for that.
And I would like to say this, and I understand the excessiveness that y'all feel this is, certainly do. And I understand the fact that we are interpreting this to mean just the water. But when somebody leaves us owing a bill, they're not leaving us just the water bill. They're leaving us with the entire bill. And typically, they're 2 months into us before we cut off and disconnect that account, just because of the way it processes. So now we're talking, they're into us for around upwards to $200, $250 is what they owe the city when they leave and don't pay. So those are the concerns that I have, and let me, setting the fee where we've got it is to help protect us, to protect the citizens and protect the city. Now, the other thing that is available to everybody, whether it's low income or anything, if they've got a good pay history and they can bring a utility bill or something from another community if they're moving in, or if they've got history with us that is a good pay history, they can get their utilities turned on for $0 with that good letter of credit. Now, if they fall back and they fall on hard times, yeah, and that happens, then there may be a chance we have to come back in and readdress that with specific customers because they're not paying on time. They are no longer a good pay customer. I just want to keep that in. I want y'all to keep that in mind when you're thinking about this, and that's the way we've approached it here.
Mayor, Council, it's my understanding, at least the last 10 years, it's always been the entire utility bill, and it's pretty standard that
is pretty standard.
It's about $150 on the deposit. Donna Lynn came from that department, and she's telling me that's a pretty standard amount.
Okay, and that raises more concern because it sounds like we've interpreted something that the ordinance doesn't say. The ordinance specifically says water service. So that might need some cleanup as well, or be offered to the council for cleanup. Thank you for that clarification. I'd like to ask for a motion to table this to the first meeting of January, bring back additional information, including a little more information on how good pay history can impact that. I'd like to have a little more.
I'll make a motion to that effect, but I would also request that we have a 2-year accounting of lost bills that weren't paid, that we never collected.
How would you like to see that? Would you just a lump sum?
Well, numbers of accounts versus and amounts.
Okay, because we turn those over to collections every month.
Good information. You make a motion to table to the first meeting, bring back additional information. Do I have a second?
I'll second that, and also would like to see.
Oh, are you adding to it?
Yes.
Okay, just a minute. Are you willing to accept an amendment? Go ahead.
As long as it's a good one.
And I think to also work on, you said that it's an average of 2 months in before we, catch those, and maybe we need to, look at how we can avoid that as well. How we can get it before it's 2 months out, because then that's when, people are scrambling to get assistance and things like that. So could we do that?
Yeah. We can work on that process, but that is the process. By the time you get a first bill, then we reread the meters. As we move to a more automated meter reading system than what we've got, and where we can do automatic turn-ons and turn-offs, it will be more exact.
Okay, we've got a motion, and we've got a second, and it's something like, table this to the first meeting in January and bring back assorted additional information. I wouldn't be surprised if you don't get some contact from a council member wanting something they didn't think of today, and that's fine too. A motion and a second, discussion or debate. Please vote. You're voting to table. Motion carries 7-0. We've already done staff reports. Do we have a motion for adjournment?
Amen.
Have a motion. Did I hear a second? And a second. Please call the roll. I start to say discussion.
Fortenbaugh. Johnson. Warren. Hankins. Harris. Chapman. Burke. Burke.